Howdy, this is Lemmy with RevZilla TV, here to talk to you today about Biltwell Rigid Struts for Harley. You should be thinking about Biltwell's rigid struts for your bike if you want your rear end to stop moving around and stop absorbing bumps, and you don't want to spend a lot of time or money getting it to do that. These things are currently billed by Biltwell as fitting Evo Sportsters. So those of you guys on an 1100 or a 1200 or an 883, anything newer right up to the rubber mount era, these are billed to fit your bike. Now, because we are playing chop chop here, a couple of you enterprising souls will realize that these will probably fit a lot of other Harleys because they have half-inch eyelets on there. So they are going to fit other things, but you may have to modify some stuff in order to make that happen. We'll get with that in just a minute. Installation on these things is going to be a 2 out of 3 beards on our BSD, our beard scale of difficulty. At a bare minimum, you're going to need some hand tools. You need a way to get your bike up in the air. So that's what bumps into that 2 beard category. And then depending on how far you go with your chopper project, it may even get more difficult than that. We'll get to that in just a sec. So getting right into these struts, these are really nicely made. There have been a multitude of companies making these things over the years, but there are 3 things I think that really make the Biltwell Rigid Struts stand out. Firstly, these things are TIG welded. Kind of surprising. Usually the ones I've seen before are made with really terrible pigeon turd looking welds on there. It's usually MIG. These are actually TIG welded, and as you can see, the welds are really nice on here. They're nicely made. They are electroplated black. I see these sold as raw a lot of time, or I see them in terrible peeling chrome. Getting an actually nice finish on there, this electroplate black, sort of sets these a little bit apart. The final thing I think sets these apart from all their competitors is the countersink here. You can see these holes, the eyelets for your shock hardware, are countersunk. So your hardware is going to fit flush. It's not going to look janky. It's not going to have hardware sticking out. It's not going to look homemade. I mean, I've seen these things done even at a rebar before. They're kind of skeezy looking. So having something that's a little more professional looking will keep your bike looking nicer. So now with respect to installation, we had talked about this being a 2-bearder, and for most of you that will be the case. If you are putting these onto a rubber mount Sporty or a solid mount Sporty, Evo and newer, this should be pretty straightforward. Everything's going to bolt right on. You may have to remove your strut covers on there. You may run into a couple things. You may need to do a little grinding or filing on them if you want to run them, but realistically these will bolt right on. It's not going to be too hard for any of you who are doing this on a stock application like Biltwell has designed. However, those of you who maybe have a big twin might want to run something like this too. This is definitely possible, especially if you have the clearance. You may need to trim out some fenders, chain guards. You may need to, you check your clearance on your swing arm with your chain. There's a couple things that you're going to have to do as a builder. I can't run you through all of them, but they are things I do want to get you thinking about if you're considering putting a set of these on your bike. One of the other things to think about too, these things are 10 inches eyelet to eyelet. So for those of you who have a 16-inch rear wheel, it should be most of you, if you are running a taller than normal tire, if you're not running a 130 anymore, maybe you threw an Avon Safety Mileage or a Firestone ANS on there, those tires are a little bit taller. Make sure you're going to clear, or you might wind up tattooing some parts with some rubber that you didn't intend to. Just keep that in mind. So I have to be honest, I don't care for rigid struts. I don't really love these things as a product. I don't like the way they ride very much, and I really don't love the way they look. But they serve one invaluable function. If you have never had a rigid bike before and you're kind of scared about cutting your bike or switching to a different frame, and you know that the work and money required behind that is significant, these can serve as a quick entry point. You can spend a couple bones, very quickly throw these in your bike and take it for a ride for a couple 100 miles and find out if that's going to work for you. If it turns out rigid's not going to feel good on your keister, and you found that out for the low price that Biltwell is offering these things at, as far as I'm concerned, that's money well spent. So for that reason alone, I do really like these. My opinion is not the only one around though. I don't have the only game in town. Click below, read some rider reviews from some folks who have chucked these on their Sporties, see what they think. If you've got fitment issues, you're having some clearance problems, you're not sure if this is going to work on your application, we can probably help you. See us at RevZilla.com, or you can always get a Gear Geek on the horn, 877-792-9455. I'm Lemmy, I'm out of here.